welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for this evening. And tonight's show is going to be called Gruck or Arg, Ar Ravage, Ar Plunder. Now, I know why it's called that, and you will know why it's called that, because joining me tonight is a gentleman by the name of Ian Schofield. It's going to be what we call a kind of a quick start on the Kickstart show, because Ian is running a Kickstarter campaign at the moment, and it's got a lovely long title. You might have heard of it. It's been all over Facebook quite recently. It's called Ravage Dungeons of Plunder, an alternate dungeon crawler. And I'll probably change the title of the show because I don't know how to write orc. But good evening, Ian. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks, Richard.
I think that was probably as good as a kind of an orc kind of introduction to the show as you're gonna get. For anybody that's listening to this for the first time, thanks for joining. The reason that we do this is because there are quite simply not enough podcasts out there about board games. First of all, how long's the campaign been going? It's about 8 days now. Is it roughly?
It's its anniversary today. It's 1 week today.
Well, that's very good. And how are you in your mind at the moment? How are you feeling at things at the moment?
It's been really good. I'm really pleased with how it's going. And we're only about £130, I think, away from funding at the moment. So fingers crossed. And hopefully we'll get this thing done.
No, I mean, this is the second time that you've run it, isn't it?
Yes. So I ran it up the first time, but I didn't have any reviews.
All right.
And the shipping that I had wasn't favourable to globally, as it were. So in Europe and the UK, it was a good price, but for America and Canada, it was just far too pricey. So I had to kind of step away and try and solve those bits and pieces. So as those bits and pieces were kind of going on, because I'm working with Modifius helping me out with the shipping and things like that. So talking to them, so I kind of had a little bit of downtime in the month or so that I was off Kickstarter. So I added in a one versus many mode to the game as well while I was taking that little bit of time.
Just added in a bit more of those features.
Yeah,
just to offer kind of something new. I mean, one of the things we like to do is we want to find out a little bit more about your background with the hobby. Mm-hmm. And as I always say, we like to have a little peek back at the past before we have a long stare at the navel of the present, and then jumping, skipping, and running off into the future. So, what's been your history with the hobby so far?
Oh dear, back in the day, way back in the day, it was I suppose it was Dungeon Master on the Atari ST.
Really?
Or the Amiga 500.
Okay.
You're probably too young to remember that, but that's way back in the day.
Ian, I started off on a Spectrum, so...
Oh, no, you're all good then. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You'll be sitting there with the graph paper and drawing out your own maps as you went along.
Yeah, you're in amongst friends here. You don't have to worry about feeling kind of old. There's a potentiality that I'm actually just older than you as it is. I'm not going to...
let's not get into actually labelling what that is.
Let's do that. We can leave that at the end, and then we can, once we're away from this, we can actually confess. So how old are you then?
But yeah, that's where it sort of started. It was that, and then I'd have to wait for my brother to go out so I could sneak his Dungeons and Dragons red box that he had.
All right.
Out and start sort of pilfering through that and just looking through all of that, and that was just superb. So then obviously HeroQuest came out. It was sort of the pinnacle for most kids of that age, really.
Where did you get yours from?
Mine was a Toys R Us, which I think was the first Toys R Us that was in Brent Cross at the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Mine was the Littlewoods catalogue.
Oh no! Dear.
Because that used to be the thing. You never really used to have kind of adverts on telly, and it wasn't like days of... you didn't have flipping...
No,
internet or
there
anything
was
like that.
there was a HeroQuest advert. I don't know if it was just an American one or a UK one, but I remember one.
I remember there being some kind of butch guy kind of going about. I do remember at the time there was also I remember the advert for the Barbarian computer game.
Yes.
Where they had kind of... they had the Barbarian, and then they had a model at the time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a model at the time kind of draping herself across the arm of the Barbarian, and she wasn't wearing very many clothes at all.
No, I think the artist Boris Bellagio had a lot to answer for that time.
I think so. But I think the 11-year-old or 12-year-old me at the time kind of jumped secretly for joy. Yeah, but no, I mean, I think HeroQuest was, for me, and probably for you, it was kind of like, I knew of Dungeons and Dragons, but I knew it was very, very roleplay. But HeroQuest seemed to be a case of, you were actually figures on a board, and it looked a kind of a lot more kind of accessible.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was massively more accessible than just a big book of text.
Yeah.
Which for some kids is just far too much. They just can't cope with that to begin with.
Did you?
It's kind of. I suppose it's. And don't use it in a bad connotation. It's a gateway game.
Of course.
So it's kind of getting people into the hobby from there.
Well, I think it was not the first. It was almost like the first one of its kind, because it was a collaboration between, I think it was it Milton Bradley and Games Workshop?
Yeah, it was an MB game, yeah.
And I remember
I've still got it sitting behind me. In fact, I purchased it again.
Did you?
About when was it? About 4 or 5 years ago. I managed to get a copy off eBay because my one had gone missing.
I've got I have HeroQuest Advanced.
Oh yes, I remember that. I remember painting a lot of that one.
Because you had your normal figures, but you also got an entire little kind of battalion of little men at arms to play along with that as well, which was really kind of cool.
Oh, is this the Advanced HeroQuest one, or the Games Workshop Advanced HeroQuest that was all the Skaven?
It's the Advanced HeroQuest with the Skaven. I've got that, but I've also got HeroQuest Advanced, which was the HeroQuest box, but it had a little red corner thing that says,
I know that. I've seen it online. I've never seen the contents of the box.
Have you not? Okay, no. I've got it in my house. I'll send you some photos. Just so you can have a look, because I was going through my attic the other day, and I've got HeroQuest, I've got Advanced HeroQuest, I've got Space Crusade, I've got Advanced Space Crusade, I've got the Witch Lord. Did you get any of the expansions?
My friend had 2 of the expansions, and we played it about 4 years ago. Because when I was getting that, he got the one off of his brother. Yeah. So he got that one, which he had most of the figures already painted. Because his brother had done it. His brother being an artist. So,
that's fair enough. Yeah.
So he'd done all that. So he'd done a good job on them. And there was this one room in it, which was the room that kept turning round, the rotating room.
So I remember that.
Pain in the arse room that is.
Was that the Return of the Witch Lord or something like that? Because there was 2. There was the Against the Ogre Horde, and there was the one about the Witch Lord. Yeah,
it's like a brown box one and a green box one, wasn't there?
Yeah.
One's got the barbarian sort of chained to the floor, and there's I think that's the Witch Lord in front of him, up on the stand.
Yeah, absolutely. His little kind of American model face, skeletal and pale.
Yeah.
Wearing big sunglasses at the same time. But I remember there was flyers included in the HeroQuest box, which was "Welcome to the World of Games Workshop." And that was your kind of, I'm your mama, I'm your daddy, I'm Games Workshop in the alley, I'm your pusher.
Yes, oh, definitely.
But I can admit, did you get Space Crusade as well then, or did you stop at HeroQuest?
At the time I got Space Crusade, I had a friend who had Space Hulk.
Oh, yeah?
the original one where the Terminators were really kind of rounded.
Yeah.
They weren't looking anything like they look nowadays. And they had the big aerials on the back.
Really?
So that was one of the first sets. That must have been about 95 before then.
Yeah. It's probably a good point to jump in and say that we started a new section of the show called "What Game Is the Mic On?" And tonight the mic is on a 2009 copy of Space Hulk.
I know, and that's the one I've got.
It's lovely, isn't it?
It's gorgeous, but there are no sort of floor tiles in that you see in any other game that are that sort of thick, embossed, gorgeous artwork. And all the figures as well.
I was talking to somebody the other day about Space Hulk and the fact that you actually needed to lift the tiles using kind of the gloves you would normally reserve for lifting slabs in the garden because they were like so.
Yeah.
And I think I took it out the other day because I was letting my son have a look at it, and we were just having a play, and it was like, I was really majorly kind of house ruling the game. He's only 4, so it's like, oh look, here comes the bad guys. Okay, roll the dice and see what happens. I rolled a 2. Oh, you killed him, yay! And that kind of thing. But you notice that the actual detail within the tiles themselves are slightly embossed. So there's slightly raised bits in the tiles themselves.
Yeah, all the grates in that are all, they're all embossed at the right places.
Oh yeah, it was just, it's got embosses in all the right places, basically. Yeah. And I really liked it.
Have you painted them yet?
I have an agreement with Reed Denton from Cover Intervention Games to say that I will be painting some miniatures, but I haven't painted those because they're kind of. Do you know what it would be?
They're massively intimidating.
What? I don't know. It's like, do you know in Usual Suspects? Mm-hmm. When Kevin Spacey is in the police station, and the police chief, the police detective is saying to him, and he was saying like, oh, he was Kaiser Sose, and he says, why didn't you do something about it? And he says, well, how do you shoot the devil in the back? What do you do if you miss? And it's that kind of thing. It's like, I've got this beautiful looking miniature, and it's like, what happens if I start to paint it? And what happens if I get halfway through and make an actual complete mess of it? Could I live with myself, really? So I think...
I know. I started off on Shadows of Brimstone.
Right.
So that one, and I started painting the miniatures of that, and then painted them a bit more. And eventually got through it. And made tons and tons of mistakes, but that's
like
just
an endurance feat or something.
Yeah, but got through it, and then kind of realised that no, you don't use inks like that. That's absolutely foolish. But lessons learned, and you kind of move on and get better. So then I did Super Dungeon Explore. The Forgotten King one.
Oh right, the Forgotten. Yeah, that was. That's it's got a special place in my heart. I really like the look of the game. I'm not too big fan of the mechanics of the game.
I love the look of the game, but the mechanics just seems a bit too, like there isn't much meat in it. It's quite skirmishy.
Somebody actually did say to me, they said it reminded me of, it was like a chibi kind of Heroquest, basically. If a Japanese art studio had done the art for Games Workshop at the time for Heroquest, that's how it would have kind of turned out, kind of like a Samurai Pizza Cats kind of style. And it is a beautiful looking little game, and it's a lot of fun.
I love the minis, and I've played the game probably twice, and I want to go back to it and try some of the other modes that are in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, from what I've taken from it so far, it seems like there's not even a campaign in it, is there?
I think you just draw. It's almost like you draw your bad guys, you draw your decks, you draw who you're going to be facing off with, and then you go in. It was always meant to be played as kind of like Well, it was meant to be played like Gauntlet, wasn't it? I mean, it was a case.
These are the spawn points. Stop the spawn points and stop everything coming out.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that was the whole premise. That was the whole premise behind it. But are we missing a large gap because you don't just go from kind of Heroquest
from Space Hulk? We are. So I then went through art school and various other bits and pieces. So I was doing illustration and stuff like that at college, but it was more sort of mixed media back then. Trying every single different type of painting, drawing, ink, photographs, sticking everything together, and all stuff like that.
Do you have a favourite medium then?
I paint digitally now. And I like that because it's very forgiving. I'll explain why in a minute.
See, I'm very much a pen and ink and pencils and what am I going to say? Caran d'Ache pencil kind of guy. So I've tried digital and I end up looking like it doesn't. I don't know. It's probably not enough practice. Basically,
it never. I don't think it ever translates very well if I start in digital. I'll always start drawing in a sketchbook.
Okay.
I'll draw something with pen and paper first, and then I'll scan that in, and then I'll go from there. So, but it's much quicker for me to get stuff from my brain to a sketchpad first, without having to fight software to try and do it.
So were you playing all the time that you were at kind of when you were doing your further education then, or did you drop off at that point?
I kind of dropped off at a set point. I was doing we were playing what was the Shadowrun and D&D and stuff like that. We were playing that for a while, and then I got out of the gaming hobbies and got through college, then went on to get a few jobs, which was more in websites and stuff like that. So then I'd even got out of art, as it were, and drawing. So that was sort of left alone for a good, I suppose, 15, 18 years. I didn't really bother, but all along, as me and a few friends were playing stuff online. So we were playing Neverwinter.
Yeah.
And Diablo and Warcraft and Lord of the Rings Online, which essentially was all of the same stuff that we've been playing in books and on the table, but online. Until about when was it? Must have been about 5-6 years ago. I started getting back into board gaming. So then all the artwork and that had sort of been coming out before then. Me sort of starting to get back into that because I did some work for. Do you remember the Acton Cthulhu Kickstarter that was on?
Yeah,
I did the. There was a cover for. One of them I can't remember what the name of it now was. Terrors of the Secret War or something like that.
Yeah.
And several illustrations in that one. So I was doing some for Chris Birch. For that, and then did some terrain stuff for a few other games. I think it's my mother-in-law that said, "Well, it's great you're making all this stuff for other people, but why don't you just make your own?" So I can blame her that I'm now here 3 years later.
A mother-in-law type nag, but a good one.
Yeah. I don't think she's ever really forgiven herself for saying that.
Was yours the one that's got like the multi-tentacled beast with the horns at the side of its head, semi kind of xenomorph? Is that yours?
Yeah, that's the one. You got the little guys in the forest down the bottom.
Yeah, they're looking absolutely terrified.
Yeah, they're trying, bless them.
You could tell them from that, and this guy's got like a big, huge arm. This is making great podcasting because it's like I keep doing this kind of.
Tell them about the visual stuff they can't see.
Exactly. I'm just gonna put this to the webcam, which doesn't work and hasn't since the beginning, but it's still a very, very good in joke, and I'm keeping it. So, so he's got a big tentacle coming out of his mouth. And he's got claws, and in his other hand, he's got a donut. It looks like a pink one, with a bit of frosted sugar on it. So actually what he's doing, he's not trying to terrify them, he's actually just trying to offer them a peace donut, saying, yes, I am a potential agent of evil, however, I am interested in offering you a sugary snack, and these people are just taking him in the completely wrong way. So
it's just a Cthulhu feeder.
Yes, he's just wanting them to get really fat. Do you want another donut? What you don't say is the donut in the picture is actually 7.5 feet across, so you'd probably die if you did end up eating it anyway.
Exactly.
And then you get your soul otherwise. What was the nonsense? I told you, tangents. What was the first kind of board games that kind of piqued your interest? I mean, obviously that's interesting that you kind of stayed in the hobby, but you were in the background, kind of helping produce stuff for people. What was the first kind of games that really kind of went, oh, I like this, I'm going to make this a hobby kind of thing?
We got what was it, Descent, Heroquest, Space Hulk, and that in itself was kind of enough to draw me back in. Mm-hmm. But dungeon crawlers have just been an absolute passion, from playing HeroQuest all the way through to Diablo and stuff like that. It's one theme that I absolutely love, and would just chew my right arm off to work on. That's what I wanted to do. That's part of the reason I got back into illustration, was because that was it. That was the dream job that I wanted to do. But that one just wasn't coming along, so I decided to make it myself.
So what are you doing? You don't have to say what your job is. Are you involved in design and illustration just now, or are you doing something completely different?
I freelance, so I'm so I do several things throughout a week. Oh. So it could be website stuff, it could be user interface stuff. Uh-huh. Then there's the illustration and design stuff as well. So day to day, it's quite varied. So you behind being,
you said yourself, this is the idea that you sat down, you decided, well, you were going to go ahead with kind of Ravage. Mm-hmm. But interestingly enough, the game doesn't revolve around being the hero.
No.
That's not the typical kind of. So, what made you? You mentioned your mother-in-law. Did she push you towards making the game yourself, or was that another separate decision?
No. She literally made that one comment of, it's great that you've managed to, get this job doing artwork for these people, but surely you could possibly do a bit better if you make your own. And
it's like, I'm not saying you better be looking after my daughter.
But that's not going to happen.
Yeah, but so you decided. So what did you sit down and say dungeon crawler, and then go through several ideas of pages of heroes, and then went, do you know what? Scrumple them all up, and then look at it from the other side. How did that kind of come about?
It was kind of sort of threefold. When I started, it was going to be the typical heroes, and then a friend of mine, Tone, was saying, well, okay, when you play Warcraft, who do you play? To which my response is always, well, Horde. Who else would you play?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, there isn't really anything out there that has, you running around as orcs, or being the bad guys throughout the dungeon. So, maybe it's good to kind of turn it on its head. And I quite relish drawing the bad guys anyway, so it tends to be my favourite thing to draw, is skeletons and orcs and various other sort of demons and stuff.
Now, when they're attacking people, do they all hold donuts, or is it various other types of pastry that they will attack with?
Only at snack times, designated.
Would you get a skeleton going after somebody with maybe, like, say, a French cream bun or something? Would you bring scones into the game at all?
No scones, because you have the whole question then of the cream on the bottom or jam on the bottom.
Well, surely as the designer you would decide that, or would you? Or what you could do is you could obviously make the card kind of have the same information at the top as the bottom, but have it reversed, and then let people decide depending on which way they had the... if you like your cream at the top, that's fine. If you want your cream at the bottom, you just flip the card 180 degrees, and then you've got the cream at the bottom, but you can still see all the flavour text.
So that's a whole debate in itself.
It's just too... I think general dungeon crawling patisseries, that's something that I think potentially could be considered as a game idea.
It's very niche. I like it.
I'm just see what I've done this before, but see if you turn up in 2 years with your latest Kickstarter called Dungeon Patiserrie. And it does £4.5 million on Kickstarter. We'll be having words, Schofield. I'm not joking.
I'm sure we will. You'll be saying, "Where's my cut?"
I'll be referring you to... Yeah, and if you listen to about half an hour into the episode, you'll hear me quite clearly giving the idea for Dungeon Patisserie. You heard it here, folks. But, was it... in terms of the kind of the idea... playing as the bad guys, did it as soon as you started kind of mucking around with it, did it click kind of straight away for you, and you thought, well, this was definitely the kind of the way forward for it?
Well, I know that if you were going to be the bad guys, I wanted to change some of the mechanics around, so it couldn't just be about getting treasure. Mm-hmm. There's so you run around the dungeon and you are smashing in the faces of your enemies. And what you do is, if you defeat one of those enemies, they have a teeth icon in the bottom corner, which tells you how many teeth they're worth.
All right, cool, okay.
Right, so that's essentially the currency in the game. So the monsters are worth a set amount of teeth. Once you get a set amount of teeth, that moves up on the teeth tracker, and you can then buy goods from the sneaky goblin.
That sounds awesome.
Which is great. So, he's got things like, was it dwarven toes? Which are kind of like rabbit's feet for orcs.
Oh, wow, okay.
So, and then you got things like poison trap kits, and there's lots and lots of traps in that deck for you to use against other people. So, he's selling lots of toys and items and potions and bits and pieces for you to buy.
So... Is it a campaign-based dungeon, or is the dungeon kind of random? How does the dungeon building begin? Because one of the things I find not tiresome about dungeon crawlers, but once you've played one or two campaigns of a campaign, levels of a campaign, it can be difficult to want to go back again unless you're playing with an entirely kind of different kind of group of people. So how does it work for yourselves?
Well, the dungeon is actually a deck of cards.
Ah.
So it's completely random every time you play it. So you've got each card has, and I'll talk about this like you can see it, and I apologise for those people listening. You'll just have to imagine this, or have a look at the Kickstarter page. You'll see what I mean.
Exactly. Exactly. And there'll be links in the show notes, so we have notes to show. So guys, if you're listening to this, why are you even listening to us? Get on the Kickstarter campaign. What are you thinking about?
But each card has got imagine a grid. So it's a 2x3 grid on each card, which is essentially your dungeon tiles, as they were. So each one looks different, and they're not, uniformly boring like that. They are quite nicely sort of done, and different every time. So you get dead ends and lots of various things going on in there as well. But there's little white triangles, and as long as two little white triangles match up from one card to another, then that's an area that you can kind of pass through onto the next card. So. Right.
So are the cards just normal card thickness then?
Yes.
Right,
they are, what was it, 320 GSM, I think it was, which is which is it's a really thick card. It's not a cheap card.
No. Okay.
So the quality of them is really quite high anyway. So they're good for putting down and doing all of that. But there's lots of things in the dungeon, like you'd get energy shrines, healing fountains. There's like spiders' nests in there, which you put these little tokens on. They kind of work like I want to say the Gene Stealer tokens in Space Hulk. So you get basically you put all the tokens together, all face up, and some of them have spiders in, some of them have sort of broken eggs, so you don't know what you're going to get. So each time one of these tiles comes up with a spider's nest, you just put a token on it.
Yeah.
And on the next go, the monsters sort of phase in it, the bloodshed phase. One of those will kind of hatch, so you don't know whether you're going to get your monster that you would have pulled and one of those, or whether you're going to be okay. So that's on there. And then you get these resurrection spots as well on the map. So some games always force you to be starting from the beginning if you die.
Yeah.
Whereas I really wanted, if the dungeon had kind of expanded out, you might have several spawn points, as it were, where you could come back somewhere else. But,
so that's the kind of the dungeon crawling video gamer guy speaking there, isn't it? Because there is nothing worse than starting an entire level from the very, very beginning again.
That's very, very true. Yeah. So there are pulls off sort of video games and pulls off of sort of board games as well in terms of how I kind of wanted it to work. Mm-hmm. But
did you put everything together yourself? I mean, was it purely a one-man effort? Were you constantly kind of getting feedback from other people on how it should work? I mean, how did that come together? Yeah.
It was a case of kind of build it in just I bought some like white cards off Amazon, just started drawing them out quickly and sort of trying to playing it myself, and then getting some friends around and playing with them, kind of working out what worked and what didn't, what to throw out, what to try, sort of go through it again and again, and it really is a case of rinse and repeat once you start, and then sort of hashing out other ideas. But through several playtests, I mean, I've been at the UK Games Expo for the last 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
In the playtest area. So getting feedback there, feedback from the Modifius runs sort of game nights, so they were getting feedback there. And various other sort of playtest groups and that I've managed to go along to and get people playing. But it's kind of got better and better as the years have gone on, which is good. But there were so many ideas that sort of got thrown at it, and it's a case of put some in, take some out, and then try and work out what keeps the game good without it being too complex.
Yeah, I mean, is it difficult? I take it you've got to have a pride gets left at the door kind of mindset, because I guess it must be quite difficult to remove a mechanic if you're thinking it's working and people are just coming back and saying, listen, you need to trim this down or take this out. Has the game changed? Has the game kind of changed quite dramatically from the first kind of idea that you had then?
Yes, quite a lot. One of the main things was the leveling up that's in the game. So how do I explain it for radio? Okay, you have a
do it through the art of mime.
Do it in the form of dance.
That'd be brilliant. We just have like 5.5 minutes of this.
You get little tapping sounds.
Yeah, that would be so funny. And and if we were serious, we would just include that in the entire bit for 5 minutes and just try it serious.
So what you have is a character board. So each character has there's like five spaces on there, which is their skills or sort of ability cards. Yeah.
Yeah.
So each one of those costs a set amount of energy to use. Okay. So energy is rolled on the attack and defense dice.
Right.
So it's basically a blank side on the dice. So you roll energy. So if you didn't hit something, then you rolled an energy. So you can gain energy to make attacks, make like special attacks. And you're kind of accumulating your dice rolls. So say your character has, normally he would have 2 blue dice as his standard attack, and you decided to use, hang on, let me have a look through here. Yeah. So, for
You have
example,
to be pirouetting while you're doing this. I hope you're doing this at the same time.
right. So the shaman has a crude carving he can use.
Okay.
Okay. So if I want to use that, it costs me 1 energy to use that card, but it gives me another blue dice. So you're effectively, pulling the amount of dice that you get normally. You're adding more to it to make your attacks bigger and better.
Oh, cool.
Right, as you go through it. So once you use energy, your experience goes up. So if something costs you 2 XP, then 2 energy, then your energy tracker goes down and your XP goes up 2 points.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay.
So it's a 1-for-1 kind of trade-off, which is good. So once you get up to 4 experience points, you can then level up one of your 5 cards, and you do that by just literally flipping it over. And then there's so the crude carving has a bludgeoning blow on the back. So you may have hit an artery, roll the trap dice. If it's a trap, then you add +1 to your attack.
Okay.
On normal attacks, so it kind of improves the cards that you've got in front of you. So one of them has so it's the shaman has a raven, so you can transform into a raven normally and travel up to like 8 squares. But if you decided to level that card up, you could then transform into a feral bear. And obviously do massive amounts of damage. So it really is a question of who are you playing with and how do you want to level your character.
Well, I mean, if you're playing with, like, say, Andy Lewis or Steve Tudor or John Cage from Polyhedron Collider, they went...
It's bears all the way.
They lost their mind when they said you could basically turn into a bear. Because, you know what I mean? I mean, they are one of the other... I believe they're one of the other board gaming podcasts that exists, apart from Meeples Anonymous, and I'm going to give a big list, otherwise I'm going to get in trouble, but... I think that was the thing that kind of piqued my interest and kind of went, yeah, let's, I am really, really interested in speaking to your good self, because when Andy and Steve went, there's bears in it, you could turn into a bear, I was like, sold.
I think it was Andy was the Andy was the cultist, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So he had summon undead on his.
Yeah.
So instead of leveling up, what this other character does, the cultist, he can summon an undead character. So there's like a deck of summon undead cards. So you can summon a skeleton to run around the board with you.
See, that's just the kind of thing that you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you want to be, if you're going to be a bad guy, you want to be a bad guy doing it right. You're just basically saying to people, look, here's your chance to be a bad guy. This is how you're going to do things. But the bear thing, when you change into a bear,
yep.
Do you get, is there artwork for the bear?
There is.
Is there a little standee that you turn into when you become the bear?
No, there isn't. It's not quite Brave Star.
Brave Star. Eyes of the, I don't know. Eyes of the
Hawk. Speed of the Walrus.
Eyes of the Snail. Do you know what I mean? Speed of the Chihuahua. What is it?
Speed of the Puma, wasn't it? Strength of the Bear.
Eyes of the Hawk.
That's it. That's the other one.
Ears of the Goldfish.
No, I don't think that was there.
No, there's a whole series.
Don't you'll get me tangenting into Manimal soon.
Right. Okay. Are you doing a little standee with the bear on it?
No, because the character actually transforms into the bear, so it just remains as the shaman.
Could you not take him off and then replace it with a bear?
You just want more bears in the game. That's what it is.
There has to be bears. I mean, it's just just have an entire bear thing.
But it is a feral bear, so it at the end of the turn, after it's done the damage, he tries to transform back under control.
Oh.
And if he doesn't manage it, then he lashes out at any other people standing around him.
Well, that's because he's a bad bear, isn't he? I mean, it's not Winnie the Pooh. It's not Winnie the Pooh here, is it?
Exactly. There's no 100-acre wood.
I know. Thank you, Rabbit. I must have. I'm just about to attack that skeleton, Piglet. You never can tell with bees. You can tell I got a 4-year-old. Eh?
It's all the classics.
Oh, you gotta do that. You know what I mean? You know, you just
Well,
imagine
was Winnie the Pooh looking down the toilet? Oh no, what was it? Why is Tigger looking down the toilet? He was looking for poo.
I can edit that so it sounds brilliant. Oh, you could just imagine that, you know. It would be so funny if you did have he transforms into a Winnie the Pooh variant until Disney obviously gets in contact with you. And says,
can you do a Kickstarter exclusive and get away with it?
I think that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? You could just imagine him going, you know, it's saying to the other orcs, I think at this point if you could say, tut tut, it looks like rain. Just to see. That just, you know, obviously. I do a Tigger as well, but I'm not going to bother because I'm too hot. Because I am in the smallest room in the house and it's far too hot. So, basically, the term of, do you have set kind of movement you can have? Is it movement based on dice? I mean, how does that work?
Movement is literally every character gets 4 spaces that they can move, which is 4 tiles.
Cool.
And you can move diagonally. The main difference between the heroes and the monsters is the heroes get to perform 2 actions, and they can be any 2 actions that they're allowed. So they can move twice or attack twice, whereas monsters would only get to move and attack. They
right, okay.
2 of the same. So there's that. But on your go, you can perform 2 actions. So you can move, attack. You can search for plunder. You can take a token. So that might be that you're standing next to an energy shrine or a health fountain or something like that, and you want to pick up that amount. And you can perform something called a blood tribute, which is where you lose 1 life to gain 2 energy.
Okay.
So that's sort of what you can do in your go. So those are the main pieces. But you start by delving, so you draw a delve card. So you kind of expand the map out. Then you seek glory. So you pull one of the other cards, which is either going to be a trap, a monster. If you're really lucky, it might be something like a cure poison or a healing potion. But that's kind of what goes on the card at that point. And then you get to Ravage, which is your 2 actions.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then you get onto the bloodshed phase, which is where the monsters then start coming after you. So any monsters you pull during the game sit in front of you. You have your own sort of monster track. So all those monsters have your scent and are just coming after you. Yeah.
Ah, right. Okay. So this is instead of the kind of the player with initiative always gets kind of attack kind of thing. It's a case of
rather than the nearest player. It's it's more, you know, you're expanding the dungeon near your character, so it's your fault that you expanded that bit. They're coming after you. Ah,
right. Okay.
Yeah. So that works quite nicely, but there are other elements to that, such as say, for example, you shot one of my monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you hit it, you aggro it. So it then moves to your monster track, and then it's coming after you. So you might get somebody in the party that is just being overwhelmed with monsters.
Because he's just going about hitting everything?
Yeah. Or he's been really, really unlucky with the cards, or there could be a multitude of things. I mean, that's one of the really quite random things about the game, is that it's never going to play the same twice, because everything is cards.
Are you encouraged to play together then? Is it fully cooperative, or do you get the ability to kind of be an orc and kind of do one over on your mates?
There are several modes in it. So you've got there is the solo mode, which is you against the dungeon, and you basically place the dungeon boss card in the deck, 10 cards down, and you've got to survive to the boss and defeat the boss. So that's the solo mode. And
what kind of boss? What kind of boss are you looking at then? What kind of
bosses? You've got there's a cave serpent, spider queen, hell demon, and then there's the warlock, and then there's one that's yet to be chosen by the Kickstarter backers. Ah,
right, okay. So there's is that a stretch goal then to be?
No. That's just part of the campaign.
Oh, okay.
Because I had 5 bosses. I'd allocated for 5.
Yeah.
And one of them I wanted the backers to kind of pick. We would do a poll at the end. So just trying to get people's comments in the thread going as to, what kind of boss do you want? Do you want some kind of night hag, or do you want some kind of Medusa or Cerebus or something like that? Just trying to get a feel for what people kind of want, and then we'll poll it nearer the end and work out what that's going to be, and then sort of put the quest and that in as well to go with it.
That sounds pretty cool.
But bosses work a little bit differently to monsters, because they've got a little set of AI cards that go with them. So each turn you pull from that deck and they'll do something different. So the cave serpent, for example, breathes fire. So it sets fire to any spots with any monsters or heroes on it.
Okay.
And that the fire kind of stays in the dungeon, so you have to kind of avoid all of the fire that's laid on the floor, and you've got to get off the fire to not take any more damage, but avoid going through it at a later point.
So, I mean, this sounds like there's been a lot of work to put everything together, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's been, you said you've added, obviously, another mode for the new Kickstarter,
well, that was just solo mode. So then you've got co-op, which is where 4 of you can play. Well, 4 characters can play, and then there's also the evil overlord as well. So you can do it at 1 versus many, or you can just automate it and not have the evil overlord.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to say, the evil overlord, adding that person in, really does make the game quite a bit harder, because a real person running it doesn't run it as friendly as you might. If you're kind of running it yourself, you might go, let's not walk through that square, because no, if I go round that, then he won't hit me this turn. And having watched loads of people play it, you kind of see them doing that. They idle it lightly a little bit as they go round.
Just a little bit gentler on themselves, because you obviously I can't imagine anybody that gets 2 turns into a game and makes sure they try and kill themselves unless they're
But playing with the evil overlord, and you'll see people will be more inclined to go, I don't need to go past the fire, I've got a range monster, I'll just stand here and just pick you off at a distance. And you get those kind of elements to it, which is really quite fun. But that's what it's all about. So the co-op, with or without the evil overlord, is there. So there's 8 quests were in the book, but we unlocked 2 more through social stretch goals, so it's now going to be 10.
That's pretty good.
And there's Beergast, what was it? Bloodgast Beer Belcher's famous brew is one of the latest quests that's gone in it. And there's also a treachery mode, which is the versus mode.
Yeah, how does that? Is that just you're pretty much against, is every man for themselves then?
That plays a little bit differently, because everybody's playing themselves and they're also playing an evil overlord. They're playing both.
All right, okay.
So any monsters that you pull are sitting in your monster track, but you're using those against the other players.
Ah, right, okay. So it's almost like this is the group that you've gathered together in order to help you take out everybody else.
It's more you're trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
To gain promotions to become the war chief.
Oh, cool.
So you go from peon up to war chief. Is the rankings. But you get a lot more health, and it works differently in the sense that when you would usually delve, any cards that you pull, you put next to a hero that you kind of want to expand around, because you want to put monsters over by them.
Yeah.
And not you. So you place it over by their character, and then you pull out the Seek Glory, so that monster's going to go over there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's a trap, then you just kind of look around the dungeon and go, which one's looking the most beaten up, and if I manage to get this good, then that guy dies and I get another promotion.
That's pretty good.
But it's that backstabbing mechanic that's quite funny, because I play in a group that's mostly co-op. We love co-op games. And sometimes when buying a game, I won't buy a game if it's a one versus many.
Yeah.
Because it's not initially for my group that I like playing with. And then having played with sort of friends who've got their gaming groups, and I sat there one night and they'd been gaming for like 20 years, the same group, and the tit for tat on the backstabbing mechanics was brutal. You just see them just kind of laughing at each other, going, "Well, you could be having that one, and you're going to be having that one, and well, you could take that," and I'm sort of sitting there quite shocked that they were enjoying it so much, and but sometimes that backstab mechanic, people just love it, and it really is group specific. It really does depend on your group.
People like the co-op side of things because you playing Descent, you said you'll be aware of. There's the Descent companion app now.
There is, yes.
Which basically, that's what that does. That means, Descent itself is not the issue, but the issue I've seen with Descent is you can't play it with two players. It just becomes
it's me versus you.
Yeah, it's a kind of a war of attrition. So the Descent app, when I saw it, I went, "Oh, this could be cool," because it allows you to actually solo the game. But at the same time, it turns it into almost like a 3-player game because you've got yourself with whoever you're standing alongside tackling things, and then the evil overlord guy, the dungeon master or whatever you want to call him, is the phone app, which I thought was quite cool. I think it changes the dynamic of the game because I think in some cases I've seen it in Imperial Assault, I've seen it in Descent sometimes. Sometimes if the Overlord gets the upper hand very quickly, it can make it. Sometimes they have to house rule it and almost scale back the attacks because it's all very well you winning
because you want the other players to enjoy it as opposed to just get absolutely slaughtered.
Yeah. So I've not tried the Descent app. I'd be interested to see actually how viciously it plays. If it plays like a vicious AI, or if it is actually kind of gentle.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like it doesn't sound like your normal kind of dungeon crawler at all. It sounds like this is well thought out, and there's a lot of mechanics that you look like you've seriously avoided going down the normal the dungeon crawler route. Now, as we said earlier, this was the second time that you kind of launched the Kickstarter. And you mentioned obviously it was shipping things. You said also reviews as well.
Yeah, I didn't have any reviews at the time as well.
Okay.
So schoolboy error on my part, I think.
Do you? It's that important now, isn't it? I don't think.
It's hugely important. Without a doubt. But it's been 3 years of kind of working out the mechanics, drawing it all, designing it all, kind of doing all of it really. But yeah, it's been fun. Has been a lot of fun. Has been the dream project.
Has it given you the confidence to look at other kind of genres, look at other type of games that you might want to tackle? Is there something completely? Is there a worker placement dungeon game within you? Is there a have you thought, well, oh my goodness, it took a long time to put this together, this is the one and only game I'm doing? or have you thought, well, actually, it's given me ideas to maybe make 2 or 3 kind of different games instead?
This one has been... If I had thought it through better, I probably would have made smaller games to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Get a few of those going and then do this one. But this one was a lot bigger. Hence it took me 3 years. But I'm okay with it because for me it's kind of a framework for the start of something, because I want to expand it and extend it a bit more. So this is all orcs running around the dungeons.
Yeah.
And I'd love nothing more than to do a sort of tribe of gnolls or kobolds that you can get to run around with. That would be great.
So this is Expansionville, basically. I mean, you could go down a lot of different routes.
It could be extended in so many ways. You could release, packs of different terrain with campaigns to go with that, and you could then literally shift it over from one to the other. But yeah, I mean, the options for expansion are kind of limitless, really. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking to get stuck into that. But yes, I do have other game ideas, but I kind of shelved all of them. There's a few people out there will work on several games at once.
Yeah.
I got so far along with this, was sort of tinkering with a couple of others, and then just said, no, I've got to leave those alone and just concentrate on Ravage. That's where I'm going.
Was it difficult to get back on the horse? Was it a part of you when the first Kickstarter kind of didn't work out? Was it always an intention just to come back and redo it again? Was it a part of you that thought, well, this maybe isn't, gonna work? It was a little bit of a knock, but it's difficult. I mean, Kickstarter is so different now. I mean, if I'd done this Kickstarter 10 years ago, not 10 years ago, it wasn't around 10 years ago. If I'd done this Kickstarter about 3 years ago, I think it would have been very, very different. But Kickstarter itself has changed so much. You get the likes of, Cool Mini are not using it, and such huge companies using it now that it makes it more difficult for the smaller guys to try and make it. But then on the other side, it looks very, very close that you are whiskers away from making it.
I haven't checked since we started doing the podcast. What are we on?
I'm not going to tell you.
I tried to focus. I have left the browser window shut. I tried to focus.
Left the browser window shut. You are now £82 away from funding.
Oh, sweet Jesus! Almost there.
That's exciting. That's exciting. This is like telling you you're gonna, you've just won a car.
Don't jinx it.
I know that'll be that.
Just don't ask me to remember the 7 things on the conveyor belt, because I won't remember one of them.
Oh dear, no. No, I mean, I guess if you've got the expansions planned out, this. Yeah, I mean, the standees minis thing, you're always going to get that kind of coming up, and it's like
difficult. I think it's a bit divided, because you've got some people that love minis, and I love minis. I think they're great, and given a limitless budget, I would have thrown minis at it, but I don't have a limitless budget. And also, it's the first game that I've done, so I didn't want to overextend myself too much. But I see that as something that might get added to it. Did you see the Kickstarter Vast?
I didn't. He did. Did he not do an expansion? There's
Yes, he did. The first one was standees, and then he brought it back for a reprint. On Kickstarter, but this time around you had the option of a separate box of minis.
I think
so you could add it to the campaign or not. It was up to you, or you could just buy it if you'd already bought the game. So he hadn't alienated any of his backers in any way.
No,
because people that had already bought the game could just buy the minis to go with it, and people that were buying the game brand new could just buy both.
I think Farsight as well. That's currently running. That's Lewis Shaw's.
Yeah,
baby, that's
is that with or without?
You've got a choice. You can either go in and you can back it with minis, or you can back it without minis, which is interesting. I think one of the reasons the mini question kind of came up is because one of the other guys that went for standees was Monsieur Frank West with City of Kings.
City of Kings, yeah.
Yeah. And he was in the same line as you, as in the fact that the artwork on your game and the artwork on City of Kings is both fantastic. and somehow I would have... See, I don't mind minis or standees. I've seen absolutely stunning minis, but also I like your artwork. So I like the kind of the standee approach because you get to see more of your artwork kind of thing. And the other thing is as well is if you're moving from kind of artwork to minis, your minis have to be really, really, really good nowadays in order to somebody kind of not kind of looking at them and going, I could probably do better myself with some Play-Doh and some harsh language kind of thing. So
yeah, it's difficult.
Well, especially especially when you see, when you see what came out of like the Dark Souls board game, what was getting delivered with that, and even
was that good? Because I know you were playing it with the Polyhedron Collider guys.
Yeah, we're gonna. Well, they were playing it. The Andy and Steve, I think, have played it. They said they really, really enjoyed it. They were actually.
I couldn't get near it at the UK Games Expo last year. They were demoing it. And I kind of had my head sort of bobbing up at the back behind the crowd going, I can't see. Where is it?
I'll say one thing about it, and I mean, we are going to try and get people together to have a chat about it, but it is very, very Dark Souls. And they've done a good job in making it Dark Souls. I've read reviews about it, and I'm kind of thinking some people that have kind of the way they've approached the review, and I've wondered, maybe you should have spent a lot more time kind of really, really playing through it. I've read other reviews that said, this is the Dark Souls board game, so this is what you expect. But the minis are very, very good. Simon as well, obviously, Cool Mini or not, they always bring out the minis as well. So I think unless your mini game's really, really strong, you better make sure your mechanics are like kind of really, really down pat. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't, I think people are expecting their cake and eating it. I don't think that having really, really good minis is just enough to kind of sell a game. I think with, as you know yourself, having, people want reviews on Kickstarters, they want printable, they want downloadable rule books, they want to see playthroughs, they want to see, they want a lot more interactivity, they want their board game geek. I mean, you're on, is it Tabletopia you've put?
No, I'm on Tabletop Simulator.
Is it?
I tried Tabletopia the other night and to design for. Oh, it's hellish. You saw that update?
I did, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, you were. I think it was if there was a losing the will to live button on Facebook, I think you would have pressed it.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I wasn't having much fun with that. But no, there are two modes to play on Tabletop Simulator. So you can play the solo mode, and you can also play the co-op mode for the Serpent's Pit quest.
All right, okay,
is on there. So, but no, Tabletop Simulator has been fantastic because you can get people to play it all across the world, really, and play it with other people, play test it. Get feedback, and it's just such a good prototyping tool to use. Brilliant.
And that's made it easier for you to kind of demonstrate the game to particular reviewers and stuff like that as well, then, yeah?
Yeah, because I played with the Polyhedron Collider guys.
You did, yeah.
Tabletop Sim.
Yeah. Yeah, they had, as I say, they had a lot of good things. They had a lot of good things to say, so which is all good. I mean, we have talked about it, but if we want to find out about the game, we'll put the Kickstarter links in the show notes, as I say always, so we have notes to show. But where do you, if people have listened tonight, where can they find you on the interweb nets, Mr. Schofield?
You could find me. I'm on the Facebook. So yeah, either look for Ian Schofield or Beardy Brothers.
Okay.
And you can find me.
Are you on Twitter, Instagram, please?
I'm on Instagram. Just look for Ian Schofield.
Okay.
So you should find me. It's probably a picture of some kind of Viking looking at you. That's me.
Okay.
So, and I'm also on Twitter. So again, same picture. But that will be Scofy404. Which, for those of you technically minded, you'll understand that that's page not found.
And have you got a Twitter account for the game as well?
There is, but I don't tend to use it that much. It tends to be my personal one, because I found trying to maintain the two was just awkward. So I tended to just go, sorry, I'll run it from this one.
You end up tweeting wrong things to the wrong accounts and stuff like that, and it just
yeah,
goes completely wrong. You know what I mean? Just in case. No, I mean orcs, etc., etc. Kind of thing.
I mean, did you see the Bears game?
Yeah, don't know what you're talking about. No, as I say, what we'll do is we will make sure that all of the information and all of the notes are in the show notes so that we have notes to show and that people can kind of catch up and find it. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you very, very, very much for coming on, Mr. Schofield.
You're very welcome, Richard. Thanks for having me on.
No, there's a couple of things that we have to do. And the first thing is to remember that that we are many things.
Oh, hang on.
What?
You know I'm waiting for the Dobby episode.
What's that?
Well, you know Dobby out of Harry Potter.
Oh,
when Harry Potter comes on your show, I'm waiting for you to finally say... You may not be a wizard, but Harry, you're a wizard, Harry.
No, don't even. Come on, we've done the wizard episode.
Have you?
Yes.
I missed it. Which one's that? I'm going to have to go back and listen to it.
Brian Wade one.
Right. I'm going to go check that out after the show.
And yeah, there's an entire episode which is because of something that Nick Jones said and something that I said about Dan Frost that I ended up going and doing a show with Brian Wade, and I spent it doing a wizard voice for the entire episode. So it's already been done.
Oh, I missed it. I'm going to have to go back and get it.
It's about 3 episodes, 2 or 3. It's probably about 5 episodes ago now because I just keep putting out too many episodes. But again, Mr. Schofield, you have to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Ian?
No, we're orcs.
Exactly. That's what we want to hear. So, 21 days to go. Pretty much on the cusp of being funded. Touch wood. Best of luck with the rest of the campaign, Ian. The artwork looks stunning. The mechanics sounds well over and above what you would expect from the dungeon crawler. And if the boys at Polyhedron, I'll get my teeth in. If Steve and Andy and John like it, because they call it that show because they know I can't pronounce it. If Steve and Andy and John like it, then I'm sure it is definitely something that's worthwhile kind of checking out. There's only one thing to do, and that is to say, it's time to say goodbye. So it's a big goodbye from the wonderful, the fantastic, the multi-talented game designer, art man who drew pink donuts on Cthulhu-type monsters, the fantastic Mr. Ian Schofield. Say goodbye, Ian.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe. Roll 6s. Knock somebody's teeth out because you never know what you're going to get if you punch them hard enough. Especially if you're an orc. But until next time. Oh, and check out this Kickstarter. Get on it. There'll be notes and links and stuff like that. And it looks really, really interesting. By the time you hear this, it's going to have funded and everybody's going to be happy. Except probably the toothless orcs that are going to need kind of major dental work. But until the next time, goodbye.